say things that are interesting, and I will talk more into the microphone.
I think we had a very interesting, interesting conversation last week, as a matter of fact.
No, you weren't.
I disagree.
You were just talking. That's not what a conversation is. You told me, out of how many minutes did you talk?
18 out of 20 in one stretch.
Yeah, that's not what conversations are.
That's the right ratio. 18 to 2. That's where Bob likes it.
Here we are, Abe. Cast Iron Brains. A podcast with one goal every time out, and that's to get Lori to tell us what time it is 3 or 4 times before the end of the podcast. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
It's 9:06.
It's 9:06. Tonight is Monday, June 12th, 2023. A summer-ish feeling day here in the lovely city of Charlottesville. First sort of humid, gross day of our season, I would say.
We got very lucky.
But a nice night for baseball nonetheless. That's why we're a little bit late tonight. Had the baseball.
The people listening don't know.
They don't experience
what time.
it.
I mean, they know now because I told them what time it is.
It's early night tonight because Lori's going to be telling us at the 10:15 mark, and then the 10:45. It's just going to be pure fury by then.
I mean, pulling back the curtain a little bit, we're supposed to start this shit at 8:30. We never start at 8:30. We consistently don't start until 8:50 because Bob has to, jerk off for a while first. I don't know.
I don't think Abe would permit that. I don't think Abe would put up with me just 20 minutes of masturbation before.
Clearly. 18 out of 20 minutes, you said?
Abe, I'm wearing $70 shorts right now. I spent
no kidding.
I spent $140 on 2 pair of casual menswear shorts. I mean, that's not even the right. Casual menswear is like a nice suit pant, I guess. But looking for shorts, and Lori's just like, that's what they cost. She's happy. She was like, she's smugly happy about the fact that I have to spend 70 of her dollars.
Not the fact that you
on
have
a pair
to.
Of shorts.
Not the fact that you have to. I'm glad you finally realized that things are just worth what they cost.
I don't know. I mean, I'll break them in and I'll see how it goes. But $70 for a pair of shorts is more money than I've ever spent.
What do you want to spend on a pair of shorts?
I don't know. $30 at the most seems about right to me.
Sweatshop prices?
Yeah, that's what he wants.
He
wants sweatshop prices.
So did Under Armour, have the people who made these shorts been appropriately compensated? Is that what I'm paying for?
Probably not. No.
I doubt it.
That's true. Are these normal-sized shorts? Because I think I mentioned before.
So I ordered the longest pair of shorts I could find on their goddamn website, and I still want another 1.5 inch coverage.
Yeah.
It's still above the knee, and I know it's the sign of the times and all of that, but give me another inch or two, you bums. Right. It's fine when I'm just walking around, but if I got to sit down and be social with people, they immediately come 5-6 inches up off the knee. Right. And it's it's a lot of leg. Don't know about that.
Where are all these conspiracy people? They need to be on this beat. The short shorts. They keep on getting shorter.
Yeah, it's a thing. I think Under Armour is one of these companies that, at least tries to act like they're not using sweatshops.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
That's what you're paying for. And the cut and the material. And
yeah, sure. It's a nice pair of shorts. I don't look like a total slob in them. It's better than a pair of gym shorts, so that's good.
And that costs $70.
Right.
That's just what it costs.
And you will use fully these shorts, Bob. You're not.
He'll wear them into the ground.
Oh man, these are going to be like 4 cents. In the next 3 years, it will be 4 cents per outing.
Right.
is the sort of mileage I'm going to get out of these shorts. Absolutely.
You would make Clark Howard proud with your usage. But other people, with the fast fashion, they just buy junk and they use it for the summer, throw it away, and they buy something else the next summer.
No. The pair of shorts that I'm basically replacing are a pair of Costco shorts, or I bought them at Costco. They're like Tommy Hilfiger shorts or something. and they were probably $15 or $20, and I've been wearing them for 4 or 5 years. And like there's bleach stains on them. They're supposed to be red.
He looks homeless.
He
finally saw a picture of himself. There was a picture at the school of him and Calvin at like some day where the dad was allowed to come, and he was like, "Oh, that shirt's too small." It's like, yeah, you look like shit.
Thanks a lot, lady. You know what? The problem with that shirt is...
good. I try to help you, and you don't listen to me.
That shirt used to fit me, but now I'm fucking ripped. And
No.
shirt...
The shirt used to fit you. You got bigger in the shoulders. You got smaller in the waist. And the shirt, because it was shit, shrunk.
Yeah. It was a good shirt. It's like a J. Crew shirt or something.
It had been at one time a good shirt, and then it shrunk because you don't take care of it because you put them in the dryer.
Because I need to... Well, whatever.
Okay.
I got a great deal of mileage out of that shirt. It was a good shirt. It's got a big hole in the elbow now, and it's too small. Probably wear it for another year or two just to really wring every last little bit.
I'm going to make everything into a quilt.
Regarding buying stuff, I did want to throw this out there. When you're out there shopping, like at a grocery store, has anyone ever like interjected and like given their opinion on some product? Like, hey, get this and not that?
Do you know where I've seen that sort of exchange happen? Is like at Costco or Best Buy. I think this has only happened to me at Costco. But when I bought my TV at Costco, and it was the TV that we put in the living room. So it was
when we bought this house.
Right, when we bought this house,
TV.
Like literally the day that we were moving in, I had purchased the big 55-incher for the living room.
Because we had the U-Haul.
Right, because I had the U-Haul anyway. Big TV box was more difficult to put in the stupid Honda, so whatever.
Right.
We didn't have the Honda
Didn't have the Honda then. That's beside the point. Wasn't going to fit in the Volkswagen CC's trunk either. Get the TV as I'm trucking it through the Costco. I've probably mentioned that. It seems like the sort of thing I've mentioned before. But like getting the serious nice nod from the other dudes in the Costco, like the other 45-year-old middle-aged dads were like, the 55, nice. Yeah, you're going to like that. Like that sort of thing.
As though it's not for me.
Right, but it was just me in the...
I know.
I was by myself.
I wouldn't have gotten the looks is
that.
what I'm saying.
I have seen that exchange happen multiple other times. I just haven't been a party to it because it hasn't been me buying the television. But like, if you follow the guy around Costco who's got the big TV loaded into his cart or the big other pushy thing, you're going to see some other middle-aged white guy dad being like, dapping him up because of the big TV. I've not seen it like where you're in the grocery store and you pick out the certain jarred salsa and somebody's like, now you're not, no, trust me on this. Not going to want that. Go with the El Paso instead.
So that's something similar happened to me. I was on the market for some mayonnaise, right? As I am for an occasion. And I'm looking at the shelf where the mayo is located. And I'm not saying this out loud. I'm just shopping by myself. I got my earbuds on. And I guess I was lingering for too long at the mayo area. In my head, I'm thinking there's way too many mayo choices.
Hellman's Light is what you
So
want.
let's set the stage here. Because you are a person of habit, right? Of great consistency in the things that you do and buy. So are you buying mayonnaise for the first time? Or has it just been so long because mayonnaise tends to last so long in the refrigerator?
Right. The frequency of mayo purchases is pretty long, or rather infrequent. So I'm looking, and I forgot. Like I guess I'm brand neutral. I don't have like a go-to thing. So I'm like, what do I usually get? Is what I'm thinking, and I'm like, there's too many choices. This older lady, she stops and she looks at me and she's like, you want to get Duke's mayo?
She's wrong.
The best. She was so adamant.
People are passionate about Dukes. I've heard that before.
Racist people are passionate about Dukes. You're right.
Why racist people?
I don't know if she was racist, but
I
she
don't
was a
know
much
what
older.
makes them racist. I just know they like Duke's mayonnaise.
Racist people like? Is this a known thing, or are you just trying to disparage Duke's customers because of your preference for Hellman's Light?
Hellman's Light is so much better.
Okay, so it's just a made-up thing then.
I mean, we'll see.
What did you go with? Did you follow her advice?
She didn't say anything racist, but she was like a much, much older like white lady. She was like, "Oh yeah, you want to get this?
See?
Like this is like." She was very insistent. Like,
Did
like,
you
"All
follow
right."
you over to the soda aisle and try to direct you to the Sprite when you reached for a Diet Coke? Or
That was the end of the
perhaps
Watermelon
exchange.
and fried
did she
chicken.
direct you to the watermelons in the produce section as well? Oh, you don't want the fried chicken from Kroger, sweetie. You're going to want to go to Publix for that.
Told you.
Anyways, I did buy it. I was like, I don't know if she's on the take or if she's some sort of weird marketing campaign or what. But like, all right, fine, I'll get this thing. I don't really care. And it's the same. All these mayo things. I mean, to my gutter palate, I can like tell you the difference. There's this mayo. So
I also have had a problem with mayonnaise before, which is that because it's such an infrequent purchase, and I know that Lori has a committed preference, which now I think I'm pretty sure I've got it. Hellman's Light, that's what she wants.
Light.
But in the past, it's been a problem for me where I wasn't quite sure exactly which one she was after.
The trick is, it is so rare. It might only be Hellman's Light that I prefer the light or low or whatever version of a thing. So it seems wrong. It's like, no, that can't be right. But like, it is. It's the best mayonnaise.
wow, I'll give that a try next.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, give that a try in 3.5 years, the next time you work through a giant tub of mayo.
If that lady pops up 3.5 years from now, I'll be very concerned.
You get anything fun this weekend, Abe, besides the shopping at Kroger?
Nothing fun, but you know, at the top we're talking about like how it's getting warmer out there. It's June, in the middle of June. In a few weeks, here in Atlanta, there's the Peachtree Road Race that they do at the beginning of the
extensively
4th of July.
training for, right?
So that's been uneven, my training, but I will see through to this. But in the last couple of years, there's been this pattern of a lot of enthusiasm in March. There's like like 5-6 friends in my orbit. Oh yeah, let's sign up for the thing. Well, got 4-month lead up, plenty of time to carve a few weeks of training and be ready to run. So
is the buy-in sufficiently high where it's
no, that's the thing. So it's like, I mean, I guess it depends, but like it's like $40 or something. It's not enough to like after you spend the $40 and a month or two has gone by, you forget about it.
Right.
And there is some resale value with the bibs, and so usually around now, the last couple of years, there's on the group chats, anybody looking for a bib? So we're down one person now, and I think one of my other friends, she's been kind of like, I don't know, I haven't trained since April, and usually that's like the message I get, and then a week later it's like, all right, I'm
Is
also
there a
out.
profit? Can you profit off of buying these bibs and reselling them?
Not profit, but you can make your money back. I mean, basically you can just,
Well, that's good. You sent me a text the other night. I don't think I ever responded to it. It was a picture of your brothers, one of your good brothers. I guess you have so many of them that, like, you can categorize them. And I, of course, I had never, except for Jesse and Andrew, which is, to be fair, and significant, and Chris. Yeah, I would, in fact, chop my brothers and sisters up into different. Never mind.
Wait. Andrew, as a listener, is obviously a good brother.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, because he listens.
And none of the other ones do, so they're all shit.
No, Catherine listens too. Catherine is not
a brother.
That's true. Siblings, though, is what we're talking about.
Okay, well, Catherine and Andrew are the good ones.
Yeah. Anyway, you said that one of your good siblings is vacationing. He's in like Cabo, or where did he go?
Yeah, one of those.
One of these really
places.
nice Mexican resort type cities. Do your parents? Now, your parents trucked this enormous family of yours across multiple continents over the course of a long period of time. Are now living the good life in Smyrna or wherever it is that they have put themselves up in their dotage. Are they shocked to any extent at the sort of lives that you obviously you're living this sort of bachelorhood. I'm sure they're very ashamed and mad
very
at you all the
modest
time.
life. How dare you?
But you're jetting off to Canada. You're going to Aruba. Right. Your brother's in Mexico on the beach. Like, I'm just curious about, are they sort of flummoxed by the lives that their children are living at this point, or is this sort of what they expected? And it's not like you don't have a ton. You don't have a crazy amount of money. You're just like normal for the most part. I imagine all of your siblings are working to middle class people, right? Like they're all doing fine.
Everybody's doing fine, yeah, and everybody's healthy.
Anyway.
Everybody's doing well, yeah. What's interesting is that it's kind of like one half, yes, like they're happy that everybody's kind of stable and doing well, but for some reason, especially my mother, she's like, oh, we should all been just in Somalia, like at least like the religion thing would have been like more. Like, are you out of your mind? Like you would rather us go to like drought-stricken Somalia for this religious angle, and
so
not
she is nostalgic or somehow wishing that circumstances had been different and that instead of going from Saudi Arabia to Greece to Canada to Indianapolis for some reason and then eventually down here, that the preference, she believes it would have been a better life, like a more fulfilling in terms of human flourishing or something life if you had all just decamped for Somalia and led your lives there.
Right, and only because of like the thinking would be that we would be more religious. Like if you're in a secular country, you have the freedom to say, "Oh, this doesn't track," and it's
true.
Just won't do that. Yeah, I guess that is true. She makes a good point there, but
you probably would be more religious if you lived in Somalia.
Right, but also poor. I mean, the
much
quality
more
of life
significant chance that at least one or two of them would be dead too.
Right,
right?
Yeah,
like
but they'd be more religious.
What is the lifespan? What was the life expectancy of the average male in Somalia?
Right, and do they even carry Survivor over there? Like I don't know, like what the setup is there. And I can't watch shows like this. It's not. Yeah, I mean the trade-off is ridiculous. I mean, I think she admits that it's not a very valid argument.
So she sort of laments the materialistic garbage that the lives that you guys all live at the same time that she's probably happy though ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Like
but it's just kind of like, oh, at what cost are all of these good things happening? And it's like, is the trade-off worth it? I mean, the answer is yes, but it's like.
Yeah, she'll find out when she dies and she doesn't go to heaven because there's no such place. That in fact
she won't know. She'll be
was
dead.
worth it.
Well, the thing is, either there will be a heaven or you won't be experiencing the lack of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it's literally never even occurred to me until this very moment that. Like, because my mother knows you. She knows that you're like one of my closest friends for the last 20 years. You guys have met. Right. She thinks you're hilarious and awesome. I don't know why. Lori's mother also thinks that you are like
my mom's a big fan.
One of the smartest people in the world. Like she thinks Abe is just always so right.
Even in my 2 minutes that I get.
That's right.
Yes, it's all you need, really. Blah 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 blah. Abe's like, here's why you're wrong, and that's all you need.
Right. And I, of course, my explanation for why people think that you're awesome. This is. Maybe you won't find this charitable, I don't know. Right. But you find sort of interesting and novel ways of saying precisely the status quo. You have a very clever approach to getting to everything is fine or everything will be fine.
Right.
People love that. Like people really like that.
Are we going to do philosophy tonight? It's very hard.
No, I don't think we're going to get to
Bob,
the philosophy
what
tonight.
good are you?
I want to get
Literally,
to
what are you for?
I read your Hume, and I'm taking notes on your Hume. I believe they will be insightful and helpful to you moving forward. We will read it and perhaps discuss later.
Yeah, but Abe is better.
Anyway.
As previously discussed.
What I'm bringing up is I've never previously imagined that or even considered the possibility that I would have some place in your mother's consciousness. Like, does she know that I exist? Does she know that clearly you wouldn't want her to listen to this podcast because it's not something that she would want to hear.
Not secular. Yeah. It's secular.
You know, that is interesting. She's not aware of either of the podcasts that I'm on. She is
certainly not the Biffler.
No, definitely not. Actually, as a matter of fact, most of my siblings are aware of this podcast. They're not aware of the other. And I think because she's aware of both of y'all in a general sense, like all those people from Georgia that are now
Right.
in Virginia.
Right. We're going up to. I'm
Yeah.
going to Charlottesville. See Bob and Lori. That sort of thing.
I think the second or third time I went there, they're like, it's like, you got like some girlfriend in Virginia? What the fuck? Like, who goes to visit these people that often? It's like, no, they're actually. I'm visiting them. It's on the up and up.
No, it's never a girlfriend.
By the way,
Bob.
maybe I don't say things. I do. I have my KG explanation of things just for fun, but like no one ever accepts my story as is. So when I say I'm going to Virginia, it's oh, you're gonna kill somebody or do something.
Serious? Well, Abe, you tend to set fires everywhere you go.
See,
is
the
one
fire
thing.
thing?
Also, you do this thing like you could have a wife that we don't know about.
That's right.
Like you could have a whole life. And you're just like, oh, yeah, I'm going out to hang out with friends. And you tell the other friends, like, oh, I'm just going to go do this other thing.
Yeah.
You
My
could have a whole
social-
life as
That
an
is true.
arsonist, for example.
No, he could not.
I don't have the memory to accomplish a lot of these things.
Yeah, he's sort of like I don't know. If I had to testify as a character witness on Abe's behalf, I would just like I don't believe it. I don't think that he has guile in that way. Like he's not able to compartmentalize and segment everything off in the fashion that a true sociopath would have to.
Right.
That wouldn't be sociopath necessarily.
Oh, I think it's 100% sociopathic behavior to live one life on the one hand and then
It's just being private.
I don't think I'm not even sure that sort of thing is possible anymore. But all right, let's talk about some nonsense, as if the first 20 minutes or so there weren't nonsense. Donald Trump has been indicted once again, this time by, his name is Jack Smith, correct? He's the federal prosecutor. This is in a court in Florida. I believe that was done intentionally to avoid the indictment happening in the swamp, as it would be framed by people inevitably. That's the sort of small little thing that I think people try to control for, right? They're trying to limit the amount that they can be criticized in terms of this being strictly a political act. And I would like to explain to them, as I'm sure they know anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you do to try to mitigate the appearance of this in terms of it being presented by MAGA world, by Trump and his supporters as anything but a political act. I don't know who you think is out there to convince. It doesn't matter how completely above board and apolitical you try to make this appear. Andy Biggs and various other nut jobs in Congress and Mark Levin and those who support Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself will say this is purely a political hatchet job being committed by Joe Biden himself in an attempt to make it easier for him to become the next president of the United States, and that there's no justice to be had here. It doesn't matter what you do.
I do wonder if, even though that is true, if there's any value in still striving for, like, we're going to put this in the most favorable environment for Trump, and because the argument that we're going to present is going to be such that it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know if they have since changed the judge, but the initial judge assigned to this case is a Trump appointee, right? This is the same person who had a weird ruling earlier. So, like, let's say if she did preside over the case and he was found guilty, even then, like even when a Trump-appointed judge is the one that's overseeing it, those arguments that Trump's water carriers are making are going to continue to make it, right? I mean, there's nothing that's going to change the calculation. It's like, we don't want this to be a thing, so we're going to pretend it's all a hatchet job. So it's like, it doesn't really matter what you do, but I guess is it still worth it just for the record to show that we kind of did all we could? We gave him all the deference that we could. He exhausted all of those things, and he still went above and beyond what other people.
I mean, yeah, sure. I guess it matters to some extent, and you do your due diligence to try to make it look as above board as possible. But then you go and you read the indictment, and like the things in the indictment are hilariously criminal, and like I don't want to go through piece by piece. I haven't read the whole 50 pages yet myself. I've read the excerpts from the various summaries of the thing, but like he's literally just trying to convince his lawyers to do crimes.
Yes.
Right? Like
he's floating ideas like, what if we just told the FBI no, or we just say we don't have the documents, or we destroy the evidence. Like there's a lot of like transcript information where he's like thinking out loud, like, what if we did this? What if we withheld that? What if we hid?
Right.
This?
What if something just disappeared and he apparently makes some sort of motion with his hands that suggests that it gets snatched away or something like that? We just pluck it out of the pile there. And by the way, one of the main things is actually missing, right? So it's not the Mark Milley had some sort of some sort of like war game or plan for war with Iran, I think.
Right.
And like Trump is holding it up and saying, like, look at this top secret war game plan that we had. It wasn't my idea. It was Milley. This is Milley's war game plan. Don't get too close. Stay over there. Because it's if you're 5 feet away, then it's still safe.
Yeah.
And it's like he's just announcing that he did the crime. Like, I could have declassified this, but I didn't, and now I have it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
He's literally. Yeah, you're right. And what's odd is that he that example of him showing like some probably some hypothetical military plan for invading like a hypothetical Iran or whatever, right? Like, oh, look at this, right? And initially when this story came about where he had all of these documents, I thought, oh, he took a handful of these documents just so he can present them as prompts, because like the one thing that's on brand for Trump is that he's big on, look what I got. Like he wants to always show things like, look at this love letter from Kim Jong-un, or look at So I thought, okay, if it's just that and he's like violating the whatever, maybe it's not that strong of a case. But then when they released the pictures and the sheer amount of boxes, that's what everything else did not surprise me, but I'm surprised by the sheer volume.
He's a hoarder. He's just a hoarder. The stuff that's in the boxes is like covers of the New York Post that he liked, and old copies of the of various Washington papers and the New York Times. Like it's just shit that he liked or that he wanted to keep, so that he could literally, when was it Mark Meadows' ghostwriter or something was visiting him in New Jersey at the Bedminster. The New Jersey golf course that he owns.
Yeah.
And he's showing off this highly classified piece of thing where he's like, I should have declassified this, but I didn't, and now I have it, and isn't that fucked up? Like he's just doing it to show off, in the same way that he would show off a cover of the Time magazine that he was on, or something like that.
And do you think that I'm willing to believe that because that's always been Trump. Do you think there's any other scenario, something more sinister? Do you think that it's just he's just showcasing these things to people that come and go at Mar-a-Lago and at the golf club in New Jersey?
No, he thinks that he's still the president. So he's behaving as though he's still the president. So this is all his stuff. The idea that it's like something that he's going to sell or something that he's going to give to an adversary or something. Like, no, of course not. This is just...
Is that something... Because I wanted to rule out the selling. Do you think like the sharing with like people, interested parties? Do you think that is something you can rule out?
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that interested parties might conceivably end up with access to it by like
happenstance, or just them gaming.
The fact that anybody can go to his golf course in New Jersey, anybody can go to Mar-a-Lago and get an audience with him just by becoming a member there, right?
So he's not seeking out. Trump is not seeking out these interested parties.
No, he's seeking out the ability to wow somebody when they walk into have an audience with him, right? Like he wants to be like, he didn't love the job, but he loved the trappings of the presidency.
Right.
That's all he cared about. He just wants to be able to sort of amaze people with the things that he has around him, and that's what all of the boxes are about.
What was the insistence then of him withholding? Because this would not be really a story. This would have been one, Pence, Biden, Trump, all. The story would have just been like they all mishandled these documents and they returned them and everybody moves on, right? But the reason why this became a thing is because he would go out of his way to try to evade the request to return the documents. And it's like,
yeah, because he's profoundly stupid and did not realize that there might actually be consequences to continue to insist to hold on to these things, because he does not understand that.
But will there be consequences?
There are literally consequences. He's the first federally indicted president in the nation's history.
But what will the consequence of that be? Just
that's the
being
weird thing. 'Cause the
president
numbers
again?
Yeah, his numbers keep going up, or at least they're stabilized at a very high. I mean, the margins are 30 plus points over the next competitor, and all of this stuff is baked in, right? So it's not like what bombshell could come in early 2024 when like the Iowa caucus rolls around that's going to change anything. I mean, right? I mean, like maybe the Georgia.
No, nothing. The politics of this are set in stone as far as his support is concerned. Yeah,
But that's how you be president again.
Sure, but if you are convicted of obstruction of 37 counts, 31 of which I don't remember the exact breakdown, but it's
37.
It's the obstruction of justice element of it that's getting him in trouble, right? So what I do wonder about, because the politics are firmly established and no one is likely to be moved by this, and if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, as he seems likely to be at this point, he will lose the presidency to, in all likelihood, propped up old man Joe Biden. I don't think that he can win. He has a ceiling. That ceiling was reached in the 2020 election with whatever it was, some nearly 70 million votes or something like that, right?
74, 75 million. I mean, he'll get that and more.
What I'm saying is there is no consequence to this for him.
Right. Yeah, because, the twice impeached, twice indicted, twice loser in the popular, none of that stuff registered. He's still the clear front runner in his party, right? So in one way, yes, historically, yes, this is all damning. It's going to look pretty bad that this guy, I mean, he's racking up a lot of stats. I mean, LeBron James had his unreachable, total points scored in his career thing. I don't know if we'll ever see a president having this record of impeachments, indictments in just one term. Just one term, he was able to rack up all that. But for him, it doesn't mean anything because any attempt to hold him accountable is proof positive to his base that the fix is in. And I always wonder these Sunday morning shows and other shows, why aren't they? I mean, they the guest will evade the question, but if they ask them what does a guilty Trump look like if not this? What would he have to do? I mean, aren't you almost encouraging more bad behavior if every time you carry his water, every time, there's not a time where you're no, this is not cool or whatever. It's just always the only concession would be anytime Lindsey Graham shows up and does a whataboutism, oh, Hillary Clinton this or some other comparison. Right. That is basically saying, I can't defend what he's doing, but I'm going to try to, do a little smoke and mirror.
The problem is that
routine.
Trump's crimes in this regard, they will always dismiss because the Democrats and the left, they've been conditioned over a long period of time to believe that the Democrats and the left are trying to destroy the country, right? So whatever Donald Trump's crimes are, they do not include, from their perspective, an attempt to destroy America from the inside out, right? They believe in the opposite of that, right? That it's the Democrats who have been working for generations to kill babies. I mean, Pat Robertson said he died this week, right? R.I.P. Pat, you abominable piece of shit, you. As Hitchens wrote about Jerry Falwell when Falwell died, if you gave Falwell an enema, you could have buried him in a matchbox.
Not very kind.
Robertson deserves similar treatment despite not being a big, gross, big, obese, fat man. But, the sort of person who made things up about people in the streets of San Francisco shaking hands with upstanding citizens and with a ring that cuts on their finger so that they could give them AIDS, suggesting that you could get AIDS from towels, blaming, just like Falwell did, blaming the gays for 9/11, among other terrible things.
Right.
Just a total piece of shit of a human being. No doubt a true believer in all likelihood in the things that he said. That doesn't excuse him by any means. People believe, because of things that Pat Robertson, among others, might say, that this is a political establishment, the mainstream media, the American left wants to murder babies. Right? This is something that Pat Robertson said over and over again. They get off on murdering babies. They're Satanists, right? This is now mainstream in the Republican Party, is to talk about how the left wants to groom children, right? They are trying to indoctrinate children sexually so that they can abuse them for a long period of time. That's the way that people who support Donald Trump imagine the left is acting. So he held on to some fucking documents?
Right.
You're telling me that's...
Yeah. It's like, come on.
Who fucking cares? Right. After all, Barack Obama held on to documents.
Right.
And, like, you cannot convince them. They're like, okay, Barack Obama had documents because he was building a fucking presidential library, right? And when the National Archives were like, hey, that one and that one, we need those back because you technically can't have those because they're still classified. The Obama lawyers worked with those people to return the documents, right? Did Hillary Clinton behave entirely above board when it came to the email server? No, it sure doesn't seem like it. But that doesn't mean that it, as Pesca pointed out on his thing, there's no way that the law works where you say, well, this other guy did the bad thing, so you can't hold me accountable. Like, then there's no defense for murder that because other people also did murders, that I'm allowed to get away with murder, right? That's not how this works.
I suspect that they're just saying that just to give Trump political cover, kind of like the offsetting penalties on one side, holding, on the other side, something else, replay the down. So they kind of want it to be that. The other consideration is that, think about it from a Trump voter's point of view, because this is what I thought, like, Trump is kind of like the great corrupter. Like, if you support him, you have to support him forever, right? Because if you're a Trump supporter, you're a conservative, right? You don't believe in most of the stuff that liberals believe, or Democrats, or the mainstream media, or whatever you want to concoct. You can never admit that you were wrong for supporting the person that they've always said, this fucking clown coming down the escalator is the worst thing ever. And then if you give any credence to that, it'll be egg on your face, right? So, like, almost kind of just as a saving face kind of thing. I mean, what you say is true. There's an element where it's a grooming and all this nonsense, but everybody doesn't believe that. Every Trump person doesn't believe that Democrats are grooming kids or whatever, although there is a segment that does. But there's also the component where there's no, safe place to land to say, like, all right, mea culpa, I kind of, fucked up, because they're going to say you've had so many opportunities to admit that this guy was not fit for the office. This is like 8 years into this. So at this point, like, they almost kind of have to do this whole song and dance about, like, what about this other thing? And, he's a candidate for office, a front runner, so it's improper for the person he's going up against, his administration, like his Justice Department, to do this. Like, all the arguments will be based on that, because the actual facts of the matter are harder to defend. And so, like, they'll just continue to say this thing. But you would think that I would do this two-step thing where I would say that, to save face, and then support somebody else, because any one of the other Republicans can run the same plays that you want. Like, you're into these policies, whatever they are. It's not clear to me what they are, but you're into this platform, this non-existent platform. Anyone else can do it. Like, why do you need Trump with all the baggage to do it? And yet...
Because the baggage is the point, right? Because none of the rest of them have the superpower of always saying the thing that is going to get the maximum outrage reaction from the mainstream, right? And it feels like sometimes we can get DeSantis to do it, but that also feels like fake juice sometimes, right?
Right.
Like, it feels like, is the heart really in it for the media types to get really upset about whatever it is that Ron DeSantis has just recently done? It doesn't seem like it, right? They really love it when Trump fucks up.
Right. But the thing is, it's like, they must know that it is a very uphill battle. If Trump is the head of the Republican Party in 2024, it doesn't matter who else is up against him. He will motivate people to come out just to vote against him, right? That is not the same case for the other candidates. You would have a fighting chance to beat a Biden if it's anyone else with the same platform. But again, maybe you're right. They're just in it for this chaos, because it's like, maybe you don't think that they're going to win in 24, and you're just like, let's just ride this train to wherever it takes us, because
or maybe they functionally don't believe that it actually matters. Like there's people, I forget which one it is. It might be Biggs in Congress, who uses the term "R POTUS" as his
no kidding, really,
he means real POTUS, and he referring to Trump. So whenever he's talking about Trump online, he says "R POTUS." Like these people don't actually like. To some extent, they talk about the way that Joe Biden and the Democrats are fucking destroying the country, and they're gonna hand us over to the Chinese or something, and who knows what else. But it's all just a big stupid game anyway to them, right? So maybe they don't care whether or not a Republican takes over if they get to continue to play this stupid game. I don't know.
Right. But the thing is, it's for a lot of them, yes, they're doing it in a cynical way, but there are true believers who buy into this stuff.
Do the politics from the Justice Department standpoint? One imagines hanging out in Merrick Garland's office and seeing the transcripts and being like, do we have any choice but to bring charges? Like the sort of gleeful way that that Trump was talking about
right.
breaking the law. And when he, like the way that he talks about his attorneys, like I thought attorneys were for fucking fixing these sorts of things and for breaking the laws. Why don't I have the good law breaking attorneys? Why do I have these fucking bums? Like, is there any way that this is the prudent thing to do? Okay, another way of phrasing it. I think a rational argument can be made that it's not fair that Hillary Clinton was not prosecuted based on what James Comey said shortly before the 2016 election, right? That the destruction of that email server and her intransigence in terms of bordering on obstruction in terms of doing the right thing and also the underlying crime, probably worse. The underlying crime being willfully setting up a private server in your own home that had a bunch of classified documents and like truly possibly, we don't really know,
right.
But arguably sensitive documents that were there and having it on an unsecured thing, right? And to me, it's plausible that it could have been hacked. And in fact, around the same time, the Democratic National Committee computer network was hacked. And it was revealed that was a Russian operation. So it's not like completely out of the question that the same sort of thing could have happened to Clinton's server, though there's no indication that it actually was. That was a bad thing to do. It is also a bad thing for Donald Trump to have a number of boxes of shit. But because he likes physical media so much, he's a listener to the show. He knows that physical media...
The only way you can ever own anything.
Yeah, the only way to truly own it and to keep it out of the prying eyes of assholes on the internet is to have a physical copy of it rather than do it over email. I think a fair argument can be made that what Clinton did as the underlying problem is worse. Now, is Trump's utter unwillingness to work with the National Archives and to hand the shit back over when it was clear that he had things that he shouldn't have had, is that okay? No, but what Clinton did was to destroy all of this stuff, right? Like she made it so that other people also couldn't see it in the long run. Now, is that okay? No, it's not okay. And arguably it's a crime that she should have been prosecuted for. But for reasons, James Comey decided not to. To me, there's an analogy here where Hillary Clinton was caught on video going 95 and a 55. And we should have sent her a ticket in the mail because she did that crime. We had proof that she did the crime, and she should have to pay some sort of restitution to the state for it. Donald Trump actively was in an ongoing police chase for the last 18 goddamn months about these goddamn documents, right? And he was actively flouting federal law enforcement in an attempt to hold on to these documents for the only discernible reason being, not that it matters, but like in order to be able to show off to his buddies who would come visit him at his golf resorts.
Right.
And that, like, to me, that matters, right? That this was an active thing that was still ongoing. Yes, it would have been better had we sent Hillary Clinton the the ticket in the mail, and that she would have somehow, like, she's not going to go to jail for this. This would have been pleaded down. There would have been some sort of fine, right? David Petraeus, I think, did he go to jail?
That's a good
for
question.
The thing
I'm not sure.
This is the sort of thing that has been prosecuted before, and it's always pleaded down to a misdemeanor. Like, it's just what it is. Like, as long as you don't attempt to evade and obstruct on the whole thing, then you're probably going to be just fine. And Trump would not have served jail time if this is an indictment that comes through anyway, and then he just pleads it down to a misdemeanor. He's like, look, no harm, no foul, ultimately, because now you have all of the documents, right? So here's the thing that I'm driving at here. There's a plausible scenario in which he is, in fact, found guilty of the crimes, and jury sentences him to prison time, right? Is that a just outcome, right? So while I'm saying on the one hand it's not fair that Hillary Clinton wasn't prosecuted, I do think that the correct thing under the law is being done now, where this is the just thing to do. I'm not convinced in my sort of anti-prison, anti-carceral way that this is something that an 80-year-old man should go to prison for, even the president of the United States. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that it should be prosecuted. Is there a way in which this is the right thing to do, and what I have always wanted to have happen, that I've been saying for a couple of years now, is that Joe Biden should ultimately pardon him for these crimes.
It would be so funny.
You always laugh at that.
It would be so good.
Oh, what a ridiculous thing. All right, so just a couple of points. You know what's interesting, bringing up Hillary Clinton, when Comey did this big spiel and said no prosecutor or whatever reason prosecutor would bring up anything, and people were upset at why are you making this whole thing to, you're laying out all of these troubling findings, and you're like, but we're not going to do anything about it. Like 10 days before the election, he says, there's more information because of that Wiener goober. And it's not clear how much of an impact it had, but people thought that it had a significant enough of an impact in those states to sink Hillary Clinton, right? Maybe she would have lost anyways without that 10 days before the election saying that, hey, more information has come to light, we need to reopen this, right? I think that there was some political cost that Hillary paid. She did not pay it criminally. And it's just interesting that now that Trump is seeing himself finding some liability criminally, although I don't think he's not going to jail. Who's kidding who? Let's not kid each other. The president's not going to jail. But politically, it's at worst, even, but in fact, he's actually getting more support. So it's weird how it's like the pursuit of Trump has not hurt him where it did with Hillary. Maybe it was just a timing thing, like it was like a week and a half before the election in 2016. I do also wonder, like in New York, the Alvin Bragg thing, a lot of reasonable people could say that he could have exercised discretion in not bringing up charges. This cockamamie combining things. That seemed to me like a weaker case that he brought in state court. This one, because of the flouting of the requests, like, hey, give us the stuff. And there's all this evidence showing that not only did he not give the stuff, he was conspiring to avoid giving the stuff. He's so it's kind of like almost daring them to take action. I think in this case, you have to at least bring up you couldn't have all of this evidence and say, just out of deference, we're just going to let it slide, right? Because he went above and beyond what other people have done when they had this situation.
The deference is up until the point where you're like, no. We're right. I mean, like, we were as deferential as possible in the clawing back of these documents over the course of a long period of time. But when the crime is ongoing and still happening, and you still don't want to give these documents back, I understand the need to prosecute that. And I think that ultimately it is a just prosecution. But is there any scenario in which Trump is righteously convicted and it still was the wrong thing to do because of the politics? Like, is it possible that because this only makes him stronger, that it was still the wrong thing to do?
No. Because, like as we said earlier, there's nothing you could do to demonstrate good faith, right? Like that, hey, we're trying to do the right thing. We're just trying to apply the law fairly. We see evidence that this person did a thing, and we're going to prove it in court. And if he's found guilty, that's the end of that. Any other consideration politically is a fool's errand. Like, what do you the people who don't want to believe it are never going to believe it, and the people who do believe it are going to believe it regardless, right? So it's like there's no winning there. So in this situation, what I would say is no jump shots, only slam dunks, right? So only bring cases where it's a slam dunk. And there's a lot of evidence. I mean, we don't know how this is going to shake out. But to me, between the two cases that have been brought against Trump, this is like pretty concrete because it's all this evidence against them. I don't know in Georgia
this
here.
This requires no novel understanding of anything.
Right.
This is all 100% there on the and granted, as ever with these documents from prosecutors, we're seeing their best version of the story.
Right. And
this is a narrative that this is their side of the story.
Right, of course, yeah. And Trump will get his side told. But even if you include because I know there's like two other possible indictments that are in the offing, possibly. One of them is here in my home state here of Georgia, where even like that case is not as strong as this one, where like find me 11,000 votes, you can come up with some lawyer saying, "Oh, fine me." Like he believed that they were there to be found because they were doing something improper, or even though it looks like it's kind of a smoking gun audio, you have at least some wiggle room there. This one, I'm not sure how you can wiggle out of it, right? And so this one seems to be like pretty airtight. Now, I was laughing at your pardon thing because it's ridiculous. Do you think like just out of logistical impossibilities, a Biden would commute his sentence? Because like, how are you going to have the president in prison when he constantly, like the law says that he needs Secret Service protection, so like it won't work. Some sort of commutation or something along those lines I could see, but no.
Imagine being the sentencing judge. Like I just can't imagine. Like I don't know what the sentencing guidelines are for these crimes. Right. I know Drudge had some ridiculous headline about like 100 years.
But that's the American, which always amuses me, where it's like he can get like a slap on the wrist or like hanged or whatever. It's like the range is ridiculous. It's like, yeah, because like, and sometimes they'll just, I guess, to sell newspapers or like website clicks, they'll stack them up in like an impossible way, and they'll say 100 years or whatever. It's like, come on.
Right. So. I don't know if there's a mandatory minimum where like if he's convicted on all 37 counts, he's got to serve 3 years or something like that.
Right.
But like, I can't imagine being the sentencing judge and deciding I'm going to sentence the former president of the United States and the leading candidate for the Republicans to 18 months in federal lockup.
Right.
Like, it's just utterly inconceivable.
It is, yeah. That's why he won't get that. And even if he were to get something like that, even if it were like 90 days or some random amount, all of it would have to be deferred until the conclusion of the election, right? Because if it's complicated.
Right, but realistically, deferred until death,
yes,
right? Like, there's not...
Yeah, get it tied up in appeal.
He's not going to serve a single day in jail.
Right.
Be serious.
Right.
We don't have like an island where we can send him to, where we call it jail.
Right.
Like, and we send him with a bunch of Secret Service agents, right? He's not going to go to Guantanamo or something. Which is why I maintain that the good political move from Joe Biden, and I've been saying this since sometime shortly after January 6th, I'm sure, would be to pardon Donald Trump for his crimes, because it makes you look, speaking of making you look like you're acting in magnanimous good faith and attempting to heal the nation moving forward. And we don't want to put a leader who, while we've had our disagreements, and I believe he's trying to destroy everything that I hold dear, represents still the will of some 70 or 80 million of my fellow Americans. I don't think that person should.
No, it would just be such a big dick move. Just like, nah, man, that's all right.
Let it slide. Us presidents have each other's backs.
It would be such a. It would be so good.
I can't stress this enough, Bob. cockamamie Kamala Harris for Gavin Newsom and then this one. It's like the two most absurd suggestions you've made in recent memory. Like there is no scenario. First of all, Biden is like hanging by the skin of his teeth. He's like way too old. People are already ambivalent about him on his side. Like on his side, the other side's never going to vote for him, no matter what he does. He can suck Trump off, and he's not getting any of their votes, right? So who is he healing?
Hey.
What is
we're
healed?
gonna pardon him, man. It's fine. Come on, man.
Like,
Come on.
You're just gonna piss off your own side. I mean, people would be livid. Like if after all of these years, after all of these Russia this and whatever that Zelensky call, finally get him. They got him. They made the case. They have an airtight case, and they convict him. And old man Joe, like, never mind. Just Bob. I was listening to this podcast, and
it's the right move. Trust me.
Not the right move.
When I listen to people, and that's the thing, like so much of what I've heard over the last few days, I guess this happened on Thursday, has just been a regurgitation of everything that we would expect to hear from the relevant sides.
Yeah, no surprise. Yeah, that's true.
And there's just very few surprises. Like the only two Republican nominees who've had anything to say about this in a non-Trump as a victim sort of way has been Chris Christie and I believe Asa Hutchinson also. Mm-hmm. The rest of them are sort of lamenting the sad state of affairs where one political party would, who's in charge of the Justice Department, would attempt to prosecute their enemies in this fashion. And that's all very dumb and sort of obviously so. And I don't know. Again, I don't know how we get past this being our baseline without former President Trump drawing his last natural breath on this planet. Like it's just until that happens, this is just the scenario wherein there is, and it, of course, his famous line about shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, he wouldn't lose a single supporter, because of course. The reason for that, if it hasn't been explicated enough before, is that the media would spend every waking moment of the foreseeable future talking about the awful thing that Donald Trump did, which was to shoot that poor person in broad daylight on Fifth Avenue. And then the story would simply be turned into the media hysteria around one little murder, around one little life. You're like, really, we're blowing this out of proportion, aren't we?
What about all of the other murders happened by illegal aliens or, some other whataboutism? Do you do know, waiting Trump out, he's going to put up Jimmy Carter numbers, right? Like, he'll be alive for like 22 more years, right? He's not going anywhere. Despite his like Big Mac diet, he's going to be around for a minute. Do you? I didn't read anything about this. When the New York indictment thing happened, there was a lot of like, no perp walk. We're not going to do the usual things. Like, have they decided? Like, how is this Miami on Tuesday? We're recording Monday night. They're going to be the indictment on Tuesday. Is he having to go there and do the whole thing like he did in New York? And do you anticipate
I don't know. I actually don't know what the details are as far as that goes.
Do you think that there'll be a bigger spectacle? I mean, because it was mostly subdued in New York, right? Like, there wasn't like people were worried that things would happen, and it was pretty much orderly. Do you think that there'll be a bunch of like MAGA flags flying about in Miami?
I mean, I'm sure that the Trump people will make themselves known down there in Florida, but given the sort of reticence of the Justice Department at this point, besides Jack Smith sort of getting up there and saying, I believe, all of the federal cops that worked on this are the tireless supporters of patriots, and they care about truth, justice, and the American way, and any implication otherwise is totally unacceptable. Aside from that sort of huffing and puffing about their own dignity and self-importance, they don't seem terribly interested in the perp walk aspect of this, so I imagine that they will play that down as much as possible.
So follow a similar plan as New York, you're thinking? Is this going to be...
Right.
Okay. That's what I think, too.
All right, we mentioned that Pat Robertson died. We have the good fortune of CBS News electing to give Mark Strassmann the coverage of that. This is a very short report from Strasser.
One of the 20th century's most influential evangelicals, and often a source of controversy. CBS's Mark Strassmann takes a look at how he blended faith and politics.
Well, how do you have a miracle?
Pat Robertson was lots of things. A preacher and a pioneer. An apostle of Christian conservatism.
The far left is livid, about killing babies. They want to do this.
CBN, the Christian broadcast network he founded, reached a global flock. On the 700 Club, his signature show, his approach avuncular, his faith unmistakable.
Have faith in God, who is the author of all life.
He galvanized Christians to help elect Ronald Reagan in 1980. In 1988, his own run for the White House failed. But over the years, he interviewed 4 presidents.
You went to the G20 and you met for the first time face-to-face with Vladimir Putin.
Other views outlandish, offensive. Feminism drove women to witchcraft. Gays caused 9/11 and hurricanes. Polarizing, passionate, but never pedestrian. Pat Robertson was 93. Mark Strassmann, CBS News.
All right, Abe. Did CBS News' senior national news correspondent get off a good one?
No, he did not.
Ooh, sorry, Mark. Try again next time.
Also, maybe it's just the local affiliate here in Atlanta, but I'm surprised CBS did not mention the relationship with the 700 Club, because as soon as the morning show is done, and I'm usually watching, the 700 stuff shows up, and they start doing, look, this guy got in an accident, and now he believes in Jesus, and what a great story, and I should change the channel, but I'm just watching. But, aren't they, supposed to, mention any sort of, partnership? This guy...
I don't think he's on nationally on CBS. That's just an affiliate thing.
Right, but I think at least in 2 cities that I've been to, Atlanta and some other place, I think it was somewhere in North Carolina, as soon as that morning show on CBS ends, at 9 a.m., the 700 Club begins. 'Cause I know that it was probably some sort of affiliate by affiliate kind of thing, but they're mostly housed under CBS.
I did not know that they were mostly on CBS. But yes, if that's the case, then they should be giving those sorts of things. So you didn't get off a good one, I agree with you. But in a report that lasts about 65 seconds, I think, that maybe 75 seconds, he does get off 6 P words to describe Pat Robertson. He says, a preacher, pioneer, and apostle. And he later says he's polarizing, passionate, and never pedestrian. So I agree. Not a traditional Strassmann good one, but to get 6 different P words in there is pretty solid work from our boy. Strassmann also reported this week on a story out of Florida, I believe, where a woman was knocking on the door of her neighbor and then was shot in the chest for having done that. So there's another one of those fun stories that I remember a month or so ago.
Right,
all of those.
A handful of those, yeah.
Yeah, this was kids were causing ruckus near this lady's yard, and so she yelled at the kids and threw a roller skate in their general direction, and then mom went over to bang on the door to sort out what needed sorting out with the lady complaining about the kids making too much noise. And instead of just opening the door and having a conversation, the woman elected to shoot her through the door, and she ended up dying as a result of that shot.
Wow. I assume this is a open and shut case, right? I mean, they're not going to make some sort of self-defense thing, are they?
What's his name? Crump. What's his Sylvester or Sebastian? Who's
Crump?
Benjamin Crump? That's what it is. He went down there because there was a 4-day.
This is a black-white thing?
Yes. That's
okay.
The only reason that we know about it, Abe, is because it was a black-white thing.
Wait, is this the one? Is she the lady where there's some previous interactions where there was some racial animosity?
This is whether racial animosity or not. They were not neighborly neighbors. Okay. They had gotten on each other's nerves before, probably because of the children playing too loudly or something like that. Okay. Not that obviously excuses the shooting of a person, right. But Crump goes down there because there was a 4-day delay between the time of the shooting and the time of the arrest, because the sheriff or whoever, the police, were investigating whether or not this was a stand your ground situation or not. They ultimately arrested this woman and have charged her with, I forget the exact charge, but it's some degree of murder happened here. And again, I don't know what the benefit is to the Crump types of the world coming out and making a humongous stink about justice not being served because the process has been delayed while the facts are gathered. I don't understand, besides to enrich yourself and to elevate your own personal political profile, I don't know what good is being done.
Other than those two most likely scenarios. And also, you can always, I mean, if you're being cynical about it, like, it is to your advantage to take the opportunity, because it will, sometimes they do respond pretty quickly. They'll press charges, but sometimes if they're still gathering the evidence, it may take a few days, right? And so in that period of time, after it happens and before they decide to bring charges, you have the opportunity to apply pressure, quote unquote, and then when they inevitably do what they were going to do anyways, you could say it was your pressure that caused them to take action, right?
Right, and I'm not saying the institutions are perfect, but what I am saying is that what we don't want is an institution that arrests first and then figures out the charges later, right? Like, what we definitely don't want is a police force that is tasked with going out and just arresting anybody who they believe might be a party to a crime, and then figuring out in a few days after that, after the person has been arrested, what we can charge them with. Right. Like, what are you talking about? Right. What world do you imagine that you want us all living in your situation, in the way that you want the world to be?
I'm not Ben Crump's lawyer, but I imagine his argument would be like they can point to examples where the no visibility and no like national profile of a case caused the local people to just let something slide. Like, were they, I don't know, we don't have any video evidence of it, so it could have gone either way, so we'll just not do anything. And so those instances are what they're going to use to say, we need to do it this way, to apply this pressure, because, like, we don't trust you to do the right thing. And we can point to prior, not these people specifically, some other case. You can always point to some case and say, in that case, nobody did anything until we started saying things, or there was a podcast about it that became viral, and people start, maybe we should look into this, and then something happens. Like, those things do happen.
Crump's line in the report was, for every hour that goes by between a black person being shot on their neighbor's doorstep to the time that a person is arrested for that is another opportunity for some other black person to be shot on some other person's doorstep. And my response to that is, that's just not how the world works. Right? Like, it's just like, this is it's a cute line to say to a newsman, but it is not. It's just not how the world works. I'm sorry. It's just, you're wrong about that. Did you read Lara Logan's profile in the Atlantic today?
I did.
So this is a long time coming, probably, this sort of thing, and I don't know if it's the first big piece about Lara Logan's curious fall from the sort of mainstream graces into crazy world, which is where
the mainstream, right? I mean, the way the story read, I did not know that she lost favor even with the Newsmax people. Like, I mean, if you're too crazy for Newsmax, like, holy shit.
Right, so this is Lara Logan, who had a meteoric rise at CBS News in a brief period of time, went from being a nobody to being their chief foreign correspondent and their main sort of like on-the-ground war correspondent.
Right, mostly based on her kamikaze style of reporting. Like, just send me anywhere, I don't care. And other people were like, oh, fuck that, I don't want to die. And she would just, her profile would be raised. And I think in the article they talked about how she was like attractive and that kind of helped or whatever. And
she was attractive as a younger lady. She's had a bunch of bad work done. Not that we need to be in this particular business.
I'm going to distance myself from that.
You can distance yourself all you want, but like, she was hot 20 years ago, and now it's like it's not as good, and I'm sorry, but it's just what it is. It's true. I'm not the one setting these beauty standards. I'm just engaging with the aesthetic reality of the situation. Right. I think it's a piece that's worth reading, which, by the way, The Atlantic has a vicious paywall.
Oh, boy.
They are very, very thrifty with the free articles that they'll give you. I think it's one a month now is all that they're willing to give you.
And I'm pretty sure I haven't read, I don't know, is it like the calendar month or like a rolling 30-day kind of month?
I don't know, but they're real pieces of shit with it where, like, I read this article earlier today, and if you like refresh the page, it's like, nope, you lost you lost your chance there, you bum. It's like, what are you talking about? I know that your cookies are good enough to let me read the story that I read earlier today
it's like,
again.
It's still me. It's still me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, which, by the way, is why I don't feel bad about finding stolen versions of the Atlantic articles. The rare time, like I don't read the Atlantic nearly as much as I used to when they had a much more forgiving paywall situation. So whatever. I don't know that it's necessarily like it's not particularly revelatory. Anything about Lara Logan. She talks to the writer. Actually, I don't know if it's a dude or a woman who wrote this. Let me look at that.
For some reason, I thought it was a woman the whole time. I don't know if she.
It was a woman.
Okay.
So it was Elena Plot Calabro. She attempts to interview Lara Logan by not confronting her, but meeting her at this like Moms for Liberty event or something in Texas.
This is how low her profile is. Like a fall from everything reminds me of pro wrestling, but like it'd be like somebody who's like in the main circuit, the WWE or whatever. Now they're like in some bullshit independent thing where they're like 20 people at some gym in the middle of nowhere. Like that's basically where she is now. She's like in some random place I've never heard of in Texas, and the person who wrote this, like she was trying to get an interview from Lara Logan, and she would say, "Oh, it's gonna be another hit job," and blah blah blah. So she would not give her the time, and so she went down to Texas to this event and paid $10. $10 is what it like. So she's making what, like half of that, maybe, if
right.
It's pretty. I mean, wow.
Yeah, and this is someone who was, the lead reporter for 60 Minutes for a little while there.
Yeah, she was. I mean, because I did not realize. I mean, I knew her from 60 Minutes. I didn't know how she got there. I was like, oh, she's one of those foreigners, like South Africa or England or one of those people, right? And I guess they're trying to add some of that to to the Scott Pelley, Mike Wallace.
Right. Well,
group.
and she's fully gone down the like Michael Flynn road of and the stuff that we're talking about last week with Tucker Carlson, where you can't believe anything that you're told. If you're told it, it's going to be a lie unless it's something that confirms something that I already agree with. The article doesn't quite make this argument, although given that it is presented the way it's presented, they sort of want you to circumstantially make this connection, which is that when she was a young girl, she had this idyllic life. Her understanding of her parents' relationship was that the only understanding that she had of her parents were the way that they related to each other, right? Sort of the way that most kids
inextricably linked. Yeah, which is I always just assumed they were like a pair. My parents, like you never think of them as separate people.
Until one day, Dad pulls into the driveway with a stranger, a girl, another 5-year-old girl in the car, and says, "Hey, meet your half-sister. I'm going to go live with her and her mom now.
Your better
See
half."
you later." Right. So Dad had a secret other family, and he skipped out on the family that he had. I think Logan was one of 3. I don't remember exactly.
And they were living, they were explaining that in this apartheid era South Africa, they were living comfortably when it was a 2-parent household where they had like maids and all this stuff. And then when the father absconded or he just left, they were like, oh shit, the mother had to like get her own like a job, and they were back. I think they're probably like lower middle class, maybe, if that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, not quite black in South Africa, but
yes,
so still white, but working at this point.
Right.
So the article notably does not say, and this is the seed that planted in Lara Logan when she was 8 or 10 years old or whatever she was at the time, that made her psychologically inherently distrustful of institutions, right? That this is but my question is, does a person's personal psychology in that way, this sort of formative moment in her life, it is easy to narratively draw the connection between her total loss of faith in the institution that was her family and the person that was her dad, who she apparently didn't have much of a relationship with at all in the aftermath of this event. Is that the sort of thing that primes a person for a total lack of trust in institutions moving forward? Can that sort of event in a person's childhood affect your psychology so dramatically that it makes you susceptible to the sort of absolutely bonkers conspiracy theory stuff that she's into now?
Well, if it were an isolated event, maybe not. But like the article then goes into the 2000s, even when she's enjoying this success, where she went from some random show in Great Britain, like Good Morning, whatever, to like the war that the U.S. was involved in the UK. And she was like, within like 4 or 5 years, she was like a correspondent for 60 Minutes. She was making plenty of money. But even during that period, there was some talk of like, they're out to get me, or there are people who would want to see me fail. And maybe this is typical of like media figures, because they're like, I
think it's typical of ambitious people.
Right. So they're always spying some sort of thing, but they point to that. So it seems like they're kind of working backward. How did this respected journalist who was working for 60 Minutes get to bumfuck Texas $10 and saying the craziest things? And so they're trying to attribute these things.
If part of her meteoric rise is attributable to her recklessness, is her willingness to go into incredibly dangerous situations and put herself on the ground there, which arguably you could, if you wanted to psychoanalyze her, you could say her shitty relationship with her father, or non-existent relationship with her father from when she was a kid because he walked out on them and went to go live with some other family. Like, is her recklessness also tied to this sort of psychological state of being a child who didn't believe that she had a family that cared for her any longer? That colored her behavior in that way. And then, therefore, also that same sort of thing ends up contributing to the thing that happens to her in Tahrir Square, where she, against the wishes of producers and her higher-ups, goes into an incredibly dangerous situation and is apparently raped.
She's like gang raped. I mean, this is Tahrir Square. This is like, it was supposed to be like a jubilant celebration because like the previous guy who was there forever resigned. And so there was a lot of celebrating, and they were in the article. They talk about like how Lara Logan and her producer and like a security person goes into this sea of people, and when the camera lights are on, everything is fine, right? Basically, it's like the lights are on. They're doing their piece, but the battery ran out, and now it's dark, and now all of these hands are doing whatever, and she gets separated from her security and producer. And the way I remember because she came on 60 Minutes to talk about it, or some CBS show a couple years later to recount what happened. But it was like 25 minutes of just assault, like 25 minutes of just foreign objects, hands, all kinds of things. It was like it took some women to come to her aid to kind of like clear all the people. And then the military came and whisked her away. But like it was like a lengthy period of time. And I think aside from what happened to her when her dad left and when she married this conspiracy theory guy, when she was like an adult, I think it's the stretch of like 2011 through 2013, because they describe like 2011, the sexual assault happens at Tahrir Square. 2012, she gets breast cancer. 2013, she does that story that gets retracted. Like, I mean, these are not equal.
Right. So she does on 60 Minutes, they run a piece that she reported out about some sort of British national who made claims about sort of he describes it as sort of like a Rambo event,
like in Benghazi,
where he's
right?
he's climbing the gates at the embassy in Benghazi, and he's like rifle butting bad guys and this sort of thing.
Right.
And CBS ends up having to retract that story because it turns out he wasn't even there.
Right. It's kind of almost like the newsroom. Remember that the sarin gas plot, where
I don't remember that particular element of the newsroom.
There was like a concocted story that they brought to air, and then as soon as the story aired, phone calls lit up, and everybody's like, "What the fuck? None of this happened." Da, da, da. I mean, I don't think it happened that fast, but it was pretty quickly after the story aired that the story started to fall apart. Where like other outlets, like the Washington Post and the New York Times, they said the FBI.
Right, and this was a guy who had a book deal and was trying to sell books, and it all turned out to be bogus.
Right.
And it was egg on her face there, but it wasn't likely going to be the end of her career.
Right, she came back. Yeah, I mean, in a diminished role, but she was still doing pieces. I think she won some awards since that event, right? So she was still, doing good work. Although the article talks about how even though on the air, like the stuff was pretty conventional, the story she would cover, but her thinking was hardening towards
right. There's some quote in there from somebody who says, "I don't know where she'll be in 10 years, but right now she's doing great work," and like that's particularly prescient a thing to say in 2008, right?
Yeah.
To say that in 2008, and then for her to go the places that she went just a decade later is impressive. A couple things before we stop talking about this. One, the reporter says that she talked to like 30 people or something, and only one person was willing to give their name because they wanted to be able to speak anonymously so that they could speak candidly about Logan. I do not understand giving that sort of anonymity in this story, given that Lara Logan has zero power.
Yes.
She has none cultural power or political power or any power whatsoever.
Like Fox News doesn't want anything to do with her. No, yeah, you're right. Like, what is it?
What is giving that sort of deference? Which the only reason is so that you don't seem like a catty or bitchy or like you're putting down a woman, right? Like so you don't seem like as some sort of misogynist, I guess. Like there's no good reason for you not to speak on the record about someone who has no control and no power over you in any conceivable way. I do not understand why the Atlantic would be willing to grant anonymity to these 30 people.
Right. And
it's not acceptable to me.
Logan,
it's not okay.
Didn't she kind of allude to that? Like, what's the point of doing this interview? I'm gonna give you an on-the-record interview, and you're gonna allow a bunch of anonymous sources to drag me. And kind of that's what was happening. Like I don't understand it either. Because, like, what is... Yeah, I don't understand what the concern is. Wouldn't you just want to say, like, hey, this person was this for all these years, and now... And it's not just
no
us.
one's career prospects are going to be harmed by talking candidly about the crazy person. Right? It's absurd. I don't understand. So, in other words, we wanted to give you anonymity because you didn't want to seem like a bad person in the pages of The Atlantic, is all it comes down to. Nobody gets anonymity to talk about Alex Jones. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's true, yeah.
You're going to talk on the record about Alex Jones. In other words, The Atlantic said, we don't have a story unless we can get these 30 different people to give us quotes anonymously. Otherwise, we've just got this one person who is willing to go on the record, and there's no point in running the story otherwise.
I don't know how journalism works, but is it feasible to say, like, there's 30 of you people? Like, if I use your name, like, they're not going to identify, they're not going to single any one of you, right? Because
there's no question about her situation, right? Like, she's completely off the goddamn reservation.
She also doesn't have the power to, like, sick her, like, followers to, like, some people still have a little pull, and they can just harass you online, which is, I guess not that big of a thing. But not even that. She doesn't have that kind of power. And so, like, I don't understand it on all counts, like, what the concern is.
Right. Well, I mean, to an extent, she does have some social media sway, right? Like, so she's got followers online. I'm pulling it up now. She's got 570,000 followers on Twitter. So, yeah, like you would endure, presumably, an assault and digital assault from the crazies if you got sideways with them.
Right.
But that's not a reason like that. And that's not the reason that the Atlantic gave. They didn't say these people couldn't speak candidly because they're afraid of an online mob coming after them.
Right.
But also, the way that you deal with that is, as you're saying, being one of fucking 40 people who talk to this person, and that dissipates the issue.
Right.
So aside from that, whatever. Also, is there virtue in running this sort of piece from the opposite end, which is that the way that they're setting this up in terms of this sort of might help explain the trajectory of a Lara Logan, of how she ended up in the situation that she's in now, why she's so distrustful of the mainstream and of our collective institutions. Here's a couple of anecdotes from her history. Maybe you can have some empathy for how a person could end up in this way. Does this do anything to advance sort of the empathetic understanding of your average conspiracy nut? And I think the answer is basically no.
I don't feel
think
bad
that
for her, though. Like, it is kind of a tragic story. I mean, it is of her own making, right? She has some agency in this, but like just the trajectory where like she was a made man. I mean, you're on 60 Minutes. Like that's not nothing. And for that to just unravel like this, and now you're talking about like how people wanna, I don't know, just weird stuff that she's talking about, and like,
well, the Pat Robertson stuff,
right.
but like explicitly, like the left just wants to drink the blood of children, right? Like that's the sort of shit that she's talking about on television, which is insane.
And not even on the television anymore, yeah. But yeah, in the article near the end, the writer says that in the past several years, I have written about a number of public figures on the right who believe very few of the things that they profess to believe, who talk in public about stolen elections and wink at the specter of global cabals, and then privately crack jokes about the people who applaud. She's not one of them. You know, like she's not even like a Sean Hannity just talking shit just so he can make some money, or like Tucker Carlson. By the way, none of these are legally significant statements. Don't sue me, you two. But like she seems to be in that camp where she's like a true believer. It seems like something just kind of like, I don't know, broken in her brain to where she's just like, this stuff she believes. Like it kind of got crazier and crazier and crazier.
So on the one hand, I think it is useful if you're willing to go so far as to say, people just believe the shit that they believe, and there's not a lot that any of us can do about it, right? Like the people that she's talking to at that Moms for Liberty event, those people, they just sort of believe, and there's not any fundamentally changing any of it, right? Like there's no conversation that you can have with Lara Logan or General Michael Flynn or the My Pillow guy or any of the people that support those people, that where you could rationalize your way into, you could logic your way into convincing them that the suspicions that they have about the way that the world is are utterly unfounded, right? There's just no changing those minds. In the same way that no amount of them conversing with me, of shoving all of their various evidences into my face, is going to convince me of anything from their end, right? So to some extent, if this piece has a use, I would hope that it was for people to sort of conclude, Lara Logan, one in a million. Like this is just what happens to people sometimes.
What do you make of the argument that was made in the article where, if I can read here, many Americans have embraced conspiracy theories as a way to give order and meaning to the world's chance cruelties, and this is me paraphrasing, like they're reframing the events of the world in the service of like absolution and purpose. Like so, like just something that they didn't like happened, and they're jumping at these ridiculous things because it serves some purpose, which is, you know, this is my calling now, whatever. Like I'm going to protect some babies or whatever, right? And so like they're willing to. It's kind of like motivated reasoning, like to believe some of these crazy things because, like, on the surface, it doesn't make any sense. But there's some
Right, but since I was 18 years old, or however old I was when I became convinced that the people that believe the religious things believe literally insane things, right? Like, it has been a feature of my entire conscious life that I could not fathom that people actually believe that there is an intelligent, there's a sort of human-like intelligence at work. Now, is it a divine, mystical, sort of next-level, utterly incomprehensible intelligence? Yes, they'll grant me that. But nonetheless, a sort of intelligible intelligence is at work. Is an emotional and sort of psychological and intellectual creature that created everything, right? That decided that the world was going to be in this way and is an ongoing participant in the functioning of that world, right? Like, to me, that's actual insanity, right? But for all of my life, I have been under the impression that some staggering majority of the humans that live and have ever lived have held to that belief system, right? Some more than others. Some take it more seriously than others. But a vast majority of my fellow human beings believe something that I believe to be utterly insane and incomprehensible and a very impoverished understanding of the way that the world is, right? And then we can drill down into the particulars of those beliefs, and I find them even more insane, and then other parts of it I find sort of acceptable and I'll be an apologist for in some way. But, like, I have been conditioned for a very long time to accept that many billions of my fellow humans believe things that are just crazy pants. And so to some extent, the whole conspiracy theory world has been fine for me because, like, you believe crazy shit too? Okay. So do the vast majority of other human beings on the planet.
But the distinction, I mean, in many ways, like, belief is kind of like a survival kind of tactic. Like, if you find yourself in a desperate enough condition, or you live in a very hard world where you just live and die in abject poverty, it's nice to believe that these things happen on the other side because on this side it fucking sucks, right? So, like, I can kind of see the logic in throwing yourself at, like, I want to believe that I wish there was a just system on the other side because there isn't any justice in this world, and, like, this will be all sorted out, and we'll, all the people that I've lost I'm gonna see each other again. It's like wish fulfillment, so that it makes sense to me in that respect. Nobody believes that. I mean, they're in it for that. All the other stuff they'll absorb in order to get to that. This one, I don't get. What do you get from this child whatever thing? Like, what like how many more years do you need?
Maybe it's funny that you bring up the fact that religion can be a balm for the most impoverished and most sort of dispirited people on the planet and the most unfortunate among us. Maybe the American flavor of the conspiracy religion is a sort of weird survivor's guilt, or like a white guilt almost, like not specifically white, but like
but yeah, that
a rich person's guilt about the world, right? Like, we must create instead monsters in our own midst in order to accept the incredible bounty that is modern life, right? Like, we must be victims of something in some way, or else what the fuck is wrong with us? Living these lives of impossible plenty while there is still so much suffering and want in the world.
That's why I always wondered, like, if that template is, like, hardwired, then how we plug in the stuff will be different. But, like, that template of, like, needing this larger thing to see the world and give shape and purpose and meaning, like, it's something you actually need in order to function.
Right. Well, and, like, happiness and contentment on a sliding scale, right? Like no, you can be maximally happy as an impoverished, incredibly poor person, and you can be maximally happy as a wealthy person, and you can also be miserable in both of those situations.
At least miserable when you're poor makes sense. Like, it sucks to be just being like. I think your boy Pesca, like he had like a episode, a segment, actually no, a whole episode on like bliss. And like the guy Dwight Schrute was
good
in
episode.
On it. Yeah,
recommend it. Yeah,
but basically he was saying like the in a weird counterintuitive way, like these happy countries like Switzerland, like they have a high suicide rate, and like there's some sort of offhand remark like, if you're like in Switzerland, happy Switzerland, and you're not happy, you're like, well, if I can be happy here, then fuck it. Like in a weird way that works against like a suicidal person. It's like if I can't be satisfied here, like, and it's all worse everywhere else, like what's the point?
On that pleasant note, we'll skip the. There's a couple of different studies that came out this week. I'm saying we're skipping them. We'll save it. There's the chemical found in Splenda, which is like sucralose is the non-brand name of the sweetener Splenda, and it's apparently damages DNA according to a new study.
When I read that study, I know we're not talking about it, but when I read that study, I rummaged through my all my stuff to see is this one of the ones that I have? But I guess I have one of the good ones, like some other thing that they haven't determined is bad for you yet, but I'm sure they will.
Right, and there's another one also that my sister sent to me about breastfeeding. The big study out of England that says that the longer you breastfeed, the smarter you end up, and we'll investigate. But
Wait. Like you as a person, when you
for the child or for the.
No, it's good for the child's brains.
Okay.
That the breast milk is good for the kitty's brains.
That lady in Game of Thrones, I know it's a fictional show, but remember, wasn't she breastfeeding like some 7-year-old or something? It was like very late. Maybe she was ahead of the curve.
Known to happen outside of the Game of Thrones universe, actually.
7 years in? That's
6? How about 6 years in, Abe? We'll get to those next week. Those will be fun. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Facebook or Twitter. Head on over to brainiron.com, castironbrains.com for a show note. The opening and closing themes of our show were composed by the one and only Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com. Abe, a big movie drops 2 weeks in a row. It was 2 weeks ago we had the Spider-Man movie come out and made a big pile of money. This week, was it Transformers that came out?
Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
This has got the guy from Hamilton in it. It's what was his name?
From Hamilton.
Something Ramos?
Jonathan Groff?
No.
Oh, Anthony Ramos.
Anthony Ramos is in it.
He should be in more stuff that isn't Transformers.
I think I saw something like this is a good Transformers movie. Like some of the other ones have been bad. Did you go see Transformers before I talk further?
I did. I only have 3 words written next to the little my feedback, and it's a very forgettable movie. Like this movie was. I know that some people said, "Oh, it's not bad for a Transformer movie," but like the Transformers movies are so bad that that's not saying anything, and this was not much better than that.
Did Michael Bay come back for this one, or is this not
I'm not sure.
a Michael
That's a good
Bay
question.
thing?
I didn't see his name pop up anywhere, so I don't know.
Made a bunch of money, didn't it?
I think so, but it is. It's been a rough. This movie was not my cup of tea.
Let's see. Producer Michael Bay. Director is somebody called Stephen Capel Jr. So not directed by Michael Bay.
On the TV front, this is a demonstration of how stupid I am. Anything like on the Max app, I think like, oh, how bad can it be? It's on the Max app, even though we talked about how they're throwing all this garbage content.
Even though they purposefully rebranded themselves so that people wouldn't think they were as good. Right? Because the problem, I don't think we ever ended up talking about it on the show, but the problem with the HBO brand, according to the brain geniuses at Warner Media, is that it was too good, and people were intimidated by the quality of the HBO brand, and so they had to kill the HBO brand and make it a mere vertical in the larger Discovery Media ecosystem.
Right. And so there I am on a Friday evening, like, let's see what's going on in the Max, So I'm done with that MILF Manor thing, and I'm watching Match Me Abroad, right? This fucking show. There's only like 4 episodes, right? And I'm like, just gonna watch a few minutes and be done with it. And I'm like episode 3, like criticizing like this the whole show. But reality shows, I'm convinced they have like a lot of plants in there, and on the concept of the show is that these people who are single in America think they'll have better luck in like random countries abroad. Like the concept is kind of stupid. Like, oh, I'm from South Carolina, I can't find any good men. Let me go to Morocco.
So they took a charming segment from Love Actually, in which the dope from England, who's working at bad catering jobs or something, decides that if he goes to the United States with his accent, he'll score all sorts of strange in America.
And he does.
And then he goes to fucking Minnesota.
Because it's true.
And he scores 3 hot chicks who he starts...
His friend says, but you don't have an adorable British accent. And he says, yes, I do.
Right. So they took that and reversed it with Americans and sent them elsewhere?
Yeah, so they sent them to... And I think they must have picked these countries at random because there's no logic to it. They send one person to Morocco. They send somebody else to, like, somewhere in Central Europe. I don't know, one of those countries.
Isn't this just what we do with Mormon kids? We just send them out into the world?
Yes, but there's no, like, greater purpose. And then somebody else to, like, South America somewhere. Anyways, the concept of the show is that these people who go to these far-off places, they'll be matched with some sort of, like, dating, like, pairing person, some matchmaker type, right?
Right,
and
a guru type. Yeah.
Matchmakers are on the take. They are like the worst matchmakers, like deliberately so as to make better TV. Like somebody will say, I want, these typical qualities in somebody. I want them to be this and that and the other. And they'll always pick something like opposite of that. And the person's like, oh, this fucking sucks. And they go back to them and they do the back and forth. One of the participants is like this sweet guy, like in his 40s. Like he's like, I think on the spectrum, and I think they're not coming out and like poking fun at him for that, but like the whole episode is centered around like, look at this guy, like without saying that. It's weird. It's like he's like the butt of the joke.
Weird.
Yeah, like he's like he had like a weird like fashion style, and he's got like belts and suspenders and like weird colors or whatever. He's set in his ways, and he'll be set up with some random woman who's like, got no interest in him, and they just do it just to fuck with him. I don't know if he's aware of that. Like at least the other people, they can.
You're not doing a great job on the soft sell of this show. I want to watch this show now.
I'm telling you, somebody needs to look into episode 3 because that is like one of the like the matchmaker, like the woman. She's obviously, just by body language, she's not into him, right? That's fine, that happens. And she says as much to the matchmaker. Didn't take, I gave it a good go and whatever. She takes that information, the matchmaker, and she turns around and she tells the guy to, like, sit down. And she said, I got terrible feedback from so-and-so. Terrible feedback? It's not a cancer diagnosis. It just didn't work. Just move on.
Did you ever watch The Indian Matchmaker on Netflix?
And I'm going through the Jewish Matchmaker now, too.
We've avoided the Jewish Matchmaker because Lori's a vicious anti-Semite, and so she can't.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I hate that Indian Matchmaker show for much the same reason. First of all, a number of the people that they try to match are terrible people, right? That sort of goes with the territory, I suppose. But also the woman who's this guru matchmaker who goes around like consulting the fucking tarot readers and the star mappers and all of this fucking total fraud nonsense. And she always sits there so stoically just nodding happily at all of the bullshit. Whether it's the bullshit, the prima donna person who's trying to get hitched, who's like listing the 47 different characteristics that they care about in a match, and she's listening politely and like, nope, you can't care about any of this. Right. You're just going to go with this person who's it's like, you take the biodata and you match it up. And it's like, there's no science here. You just have all of this bullshit on a piece of paper and you're like, here, talk to this person.
Right.
Anyway, that's terrible. But also you've reminded me of the Love on the Spectrum show, which
so good.
Out of all of the reality shows, right? Right, and they're straightforward about the fact that these people are very varying degrees of autistic. Like, yeah, so Lori's doing, whoa! There's the guy who would just randomly go, whoa!
James, what would you like for lunch? I guess a sandwich.
But like all of those people, I will remember the bulk of those people fondly moving forward.
Would you like mayonnaise on your sandwich? Okay, I guess.
Is that for every question? Or just like...
I mean,
he just doesn't.
Anytime he has to respond to something, it's, whoa!
He is... James from season 2 is doing the thing that I wish I could do to everyone all the time, which is like anything being asked of him.
Lori, what do you want to watch on television tonight?
Just every question is like, oh dear God, why are you asking me that? What do you want from me?
Anyway, Love on the Spectrum is great, and now you make me want to watch this other piece of shit on Max.
We just watched the Duggars.
We watched the Duggars documentary on Prime, I think it was.
Curiously not on Max, as it like dumped all over TLC for 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So this is about the TLC. This is somebody else doing?
No, this is a documentary about
TLC.
TLC and the Duggars, and it's but first of all, Lori's like, let's watch the Duggars thing because it's only 3 hours. It's like, what are you talking about? Only 3 hours? In what world do we ever say, let's watch the new Scorsese movie? It's only 3 hours.
Did.
No, I know we did, but that's never
in this world. Last week I said that. It's
never the but the conversation about the movie is never, let's just watch this. It's only 3 hours.
Watch. Okay.
Every time that I want to watch a movie, I first of all, I admit I complain about the fact that the movie is 3 goddamn hours long.
But also, we didn't watch 3 hours straight on Friday night and then Saturday night.
Right. Also, you were mistaken. It was 4 episodes.
It was 4 episodes, but they weren't an hour each.
Nearly an hour each.
They were under an hour each, and we watched 2 episodes at a time.
Oh, there you
go.
So, like, a movie
I was just amused.
Takes longer than that.
Amused by the framing of it's only 3 hours when...
It's not a 10 episode... It's not a bullshit gonna be dragging on. It's concise
also, that
3 hour
is the
documentary.
minimum now. The minimum for any of these fucking bullshit Netflix documentaries is...
The sorority one was only an hour and a half.
We're going to get 3.5 hours out of you because we're going to divide it into 3 or 4 episodes, and it's all needlessly drawn out. Anyway, this is a much more interesting story than this shitty documentary gives it credit for, which is... There's something really, and I had no idea. I'd never heard of any of these people. I knew about the Duggars, I knew about the 19 Kids and Counting lunatics, but I think if this had been explored before, their connection to this church, I imagine that there have been magazine pieces about the details about this in the past. I can't imagine this documentary. I don't think is breaking new ground.
It was 179 minutes altogether.
Right, so. That's 3 hours, yeah.
That's what I fucking said.
Sure, you're not wrong. It's a lot of fucking TV. I think that I had studiously avoided reading about the Duggars for the last 20 years. Those are just these fucking assholes who are on TLC who have all the kids. I don't want to know anything about this. Right. So, not even a piece in the New Yorker or the Atlantic or the New York Times was going to draw me in to their fucking bullshit reality TV world. I wanted no part of it. So I had studiously avoided it. But they belong to some fucking crazy cult, essentially. This goofy Christian sort of Southern Baptist thing where it's this whole big homeschooling racket, and they have this whole big thing, and there's a classic American charismatic at the center of it. This weird old guy with bad dyed dark hair who never marries but insists on all of his followers getting married and being part of this quiverful generation.
Also, very focused on bringing children up the right way and doesn't have any children of his own. Right.
Very insistent that he knows the right way to raise a child and that you should have fucking 20 kids as long as the body is still willing and able. You should be consistently producing a new kid every year.
That's how they ended up with 19 kids.
Right.
Is he
but
one
I
of
didn't realize...
Is he one of those that's like having sexual relations with people?
Right.
Kind of.
So kind of, and what's very obvious from having watched this documentary is that there's a way more interesting story about this guy who's actually not Duggar,
Right.
but like the church that he was a part of, essentially,
Right.
this weird group that he was somewhat affiliated with. And they like only slightly even touch upon it in terms of the actual like the underlying finances of it and the way that it's organized. And like they mention like, oh, well, this fucker's got institutes in like 19 states or something. It's like, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like that is super
it says
interesting.
season 1 on the thing. Like they could make more.
Sure, maybe there's more interesting things to come, but like I don't know. The Duggars themselves are not at all compelling to me.
What is the focus?
but-
Just like
It's mostly about how the girls are victims here because the Josh kid was molesting his sisters and then ends up
Okay.
getting caught with child porn on his work computer or something like that.
Okay.
In addition to being outed as in the Ashley Madison hack. Remember that there's that cheating website and all the names got publicly revealed and he was among those.
Yeah.
I don't care about any of that shit. That's not interesting to me. But this guy and the organization that he ran is wildly interesting to me, and they don't do a good job of fully explicating it. And they only sort of hint at like it seems like he's one of these guys who gets off not on molesting little kids, but on the sort of
power stuff.
the power of like, I'm going to put my hand on your knee and we both know that it's inappropriate, but because I'm the sort of guy who can get away with putting his hand on your knee or on your thigh or something like that,
Right.
that was the thrill for him. And it's not clear, like apparently one person accused him of rape, which I'm not saying that like there needs to be many accusations of rape in order for it to be credible.
Right.
But to some extent, he seems like the sort of guy who got off on the thrill of the possibility of him wielding his power and not necessarily the actual wielding of that power. Also, this is a guy who built this entire thing, and then the board that like just sort of gives him the boot. And like this is a fascinating thing that could be explored further, and I hope that there's more to know about it. But this documentary
he
wasn't
got the
good for
boot
that.
for what reason?
Yeah, because being inappropriate with these women.
Being vaguely inappropriate with
Because his whole
the
thing
girls
was
and
don't
women.
do that. So you can't do that and have
Gotcha.
people find out and still
No.
be around.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Also,
the interesting thing is what did they call it? The Joshua generation? Like these educated fundamentalists trying to take over and ruin everything. It's like a whole plan. Like get these kids educated, get them into Ivy League schools, have them slowly take over and ruin everything.
right. There's this documentary touches on far more interesting conversations than it
Yeah, this
actually
sounds
ends up
pretty
having, right? Like so there's this kid who goes and he clerks at the Supreme Court and they talk to him for like fucking 40 seconds. Like, what do you mean? This guy made
Yeah.
it all the way up he went to Harvard and he ends up clerking at the Supreme Court and he's part of this Joshua generation that's trying to remake the country through the courts, and it's like left, I don't know.
That's weird. Yeah, because like he went through all of these. You know, he's exposed to all of this other stuff. Like he was around other people, and he couldn't shake this silly belief. He stuck to it.
Right.
What a team player!
Anyway, what was that one called? It's on
Shiny happy people.
Shiny Happy People. It's on
Amazon.
Amazon Prime if you're looking to check it out there. Does not get the full-throated endorsement, though. Anything else? Was that it?
No, because our kids are going to bed late now, so we're never going to get to do anything ever again.
Yeah, it's summertime. Kids can stay up late. Although I am forcing them to do like this serious running program. They're gonna run a mile at 7 o'clock in the morning every single day.
Oh,
and then
nice.
they're allowed to watch TV.
It's the only way. They're not allowed to wake up and just fucking turn on the television. You're not going to have that sort of summer, you bum children. You're going to get up. You're going to run around the neighborhood for 20 minutes. Abe, you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight, then. We will talk to you next time.
Later.
I assume that it's going to be great. It is a weird movie to be a summer blockbuster, even more so
Also,
than
R-rated,
any of his
right?
other ones. Right. So
Yeah.
R-rated and
3 hours.
About scientists creating a bomb? Like what?
And you know they're gonna do it. Like there's all of the like, oh boy, I hope we stick the landing on this. I mean, you know how the story
Right,
goes.
so it's a character drama about the guys who invented the nuclear bomb, and it's going to do $250 million? Seriously?
People like when things go boom in the theaters, so it's gonna do well. But yeah, 3 hours, and they're not getting the R rating because of the bomb, right? Violence usually doesn't get you, like at least that kind of violence doesn't. So like, is it just gonna be some gratuitous nudity halfway through the movie?
Yeah, for years I've been asking Christopher Nolan to write one believable female character, and then he's going to make a movie
they're just gonna
about
get naked
all
now.
the dudes who made the atomic bomb, and I'm guessing I'm not going to get my wish in this movie either. He got shingles while working on Inception because of the stress of being. So she at the time felt that she was miscast in some way, and she didn't understand why she was on the movie, and she was feeling like imposter syndrome or something, and apparently also dysphoric about her general situation anyway because she whatever. Right. There's a quote from the article. It says, research suggests that high levels of mental stress can increase the risk of shingles as much as 2 times for men. So they're so fully committed to this conceit that this individual is fully a man, right?
All right,
That,
let's go to bed.
that Ellen Page, who is born a woman, has decided that they are a man now. They're bolstering the case that he got shingles on the set of a movie because of the stress, based on the scientific fact that stress has been shown to increase the risk of shingles in men.
But it also does in women.
By 2 times. Does it?
Oh, yeah.
But that's not what they said in the article.
But it's still
it
true.
says it increases the risk of shingles as much as 2 times for men. Don't give me the line about how it's
whatever.
high levels of mental stress increase the risk of shingles as much as 2 times for men. In this context, Elliot Page is not a man.
Yeah.
Right? This is where you're going to lose this fight, by the way. Right. It's on stupid shit like that.
Right.
Don't tell me the world isn't the way that the world actually is. I will be polite to you, but you cannot tell me that the world is not the way that it actually is.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.